Around the year 722 in the Christian era, a Gothic nobleman named Don Pileo, with poorly equipped Christian soldiers, defeated a much larger and highly skilled military of Moors in a battle that took place in Cova Dominica, located in the region of Asturias, in northern Spain. This victory began the reconquista of Spain from the Moors, which would last for 770 years. One of the interesting things about this story is that many historians writing today about medieval Spain would not acknowledge that this battle, the Battle of Cova Dominica, had any historical significance. Most would deny that it began the Reconquista and that it was to defend the Christian faith. If they include the battle in their account at all, they might call it a local skirmish. Plato once said, "Those who tell the stories rule society." Perhaps it is too politically incorrect for historians to say that these Christians had a right to stand up to the Moors and refuse to give up their religion to live under Muslim rule, and maybe miracles and faith in God have grown unfashionable, but we should not allow an anti-Christian bias in the study of history to prevent stories that have been passed down for over 1,000 years from being told today. By the early 700s the Gothic kingdom of Spain was in decline. Their king, Don Rodrigo, did not have the loyalty of his subjects, his army had become weak, the Arian heresy had not yet been completely eradicated, and there were many opposing political factions vying for power. The Moors, informed by traitors that it was a good time to attack, invaded Spain from North Africa in 711. The story of Don Pileo and Cova Dominica begins in the same year, at the Battle of Guadalete. This battle took place in southern Spain on the banks of a river that the Moors later named Guadalete River of Death. After fighting bravely for 2 days, the Goths were betrayed by their own men in the thick of the battle. Don Opers, the Archbishop of Seville, and his followers went over to fight with the Moors. Shortly afterwards, King Rodrigo went missing. It is not known if he was killed in battle or if he escaped and lived the rest of his life in present-day Portugal. In the absence of King Rodrigo, his relative, Pileo, did what he could to rally the troops. But when he saw that defeat was inevitable, Pileo led what remained of the Christian army to Toledo and then to Asturias. After a long and melancholy journey, they settled in an area of Asturias Cova Dominica. As the Moors took over other parts of Spain, many refugees came to Asturias to join Pileo. They chose him as their leader and they prepared to face the Moors again in battle. The Moors were not interested in Asturias, with its rugged terrain and steep mountain cliffs, but they knew that there was a remnant of Christians there who would not be ruled by them, and they did not want this rebellion to infect other parts of Spain. 7 years after Guadalete, General Alcarmo led an army to Asturias to destroy this last pocket of resistance. When news of Alcarmo's approach reached Pileo, he chose 1,000 of his best soldiers and led them into a large cave in Mount Oziva, now known as the Cave of St. Mary of Cova Dominica. It is said that Pileo found this cave years before, one day when he was chasing a criminal. When Pileo chased the man into this cave, he was stopped by an old hermit who had hidden the fugitive. The hermit asked Pileo to have mercy on the criminal who had sought refuge in the holy cave of Our Lady, whose image had been honored there for centuries. The hermit said, "If thou wilt pardon this wrongdoing, and give him time to regret his sins, and someday find a haven in this holy cave, and there will be born a new and powerful empire which shall make the name a glory to the people for all time." Pileo granted the hermit's request and dedicated the region and his army to the Blessed Mother. He also prayed that he and his small army would be able to defeat their powerful enemy, and that the Christian faith would be preserved. Not long after this incident, when Alcarmo and his army approached, Pileo remembered this cave, and it was there that he took his men to wait for the enemy, determined to either conquer or perish in the fight. When Alcamor saw the steep rock face and the impregnable cave where the Christians stood, he wished to avoid or fight, so he sent Don Hoppers, the traitor, to convince Peleo to surrender. Don Hoppers went to Peleo and insisted that it would be impossible for him and his small, poorly equipped band of soldiers to defeat the army of Moors, a highly trained army of 60,000 men. He promised Peleo honors and riches if he would surrender to the Arabs the way others had done. Peleo answered him, "Thou wouldst now try to persuade us to bend our necks to the oppressive power of a servitude worse than death. We are determined to put an end to the evils we suffer, either by defeating our enemies, or by giving up this miserable life for eternal happiness." At dawn the next morning the Moors advanced into the valley. Peleo and his men watched the enemy march towards them and then stop when they reached the forbidding cliffs. The Moorish archers shot a volley of arrows towards the cave, but the arrows bounced off the rocks and killed many of their own soldiers. The Christian soldiers, stationed in the rocky points above the valley, threw stones and trees down onto the enemy army. A miracle then occurred which helped the Christians to believe that God was helping them in the fight. A terrible storm suddenly broke out, and so much rain fell that the nearby Diva River overflowed and flooded the valley. Seeing this, the Moors fled and the Christian army was victorious. Peleo was declared king of Asturias, the first king of the Spanish monarchy. As news of Peleo's victory spread, Christians came from all over Spain, and the kingdom of Asturias grew. One can visit the tomb of the great Peleo today. It is located in front of the beautiful chapel dedicated to Our Lady of Cova Dominica. This chapel and Peleo's tomb are situated in the hollow of the cave where the Christian soldiers stood during the battle.